I'm Angela Modulewski, and I have 10 years of experience at ShareID working with our customers and advising them on best practices for launching new offers, kind of ideas for marketing. And today I'm really happy to have Liz from Refuel join us. Refuel is one of our preferred marketing partners, and one of their specialties is marketing to the military. So she is a wealth of information. We're going to go with a Q&A format today. Again, please put your questions in the chat. I have a couple of others that Ashley got beforehand that I'll kind of sprinkle in there and make sure we're getting everything answered today. Before I pass it off to Liz, who already offers a military discount or has a military product or some sort of special offer? Just quick, raise your hands. Okay, seeing a couple. And who is thinking about it? Great. Okay. Well, one of the things we're going to go over today is a little bit about discounts. That is one of the primary uses of ShareID, is using that verification engine to make sure that only military consumers can get your special offers. But we're also going to give you a ton of information about how to market to the military and give you some ideas for Military Appreciation Month. So with that, I'll hand it off to Liz.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everyone. Liz Carmo. I'm VP of Military Markets over here at Refuel Agency, and have spent 15 years of my life being a military marketer. I've only spent the last 4 being a military spouse. Ask me why later I would do that after being a military marketer for 15 years. I love this community. It's amazing to be part of. It's amazing to study, to see how it's changed so much in the past 15 years, but really since our company has been doing military marketing, it's changed greatly in the past 35 years. So today we're gonna, as Angela said, walk through what we're going to do, how you should really, appreciate the community during the month of May, but overall, what are some of their trends year over year? How are they brand loyal? What incites them to be brand loyal and retain that customer value? And really, how do you market to them at the end of the day? So as far as why Military Appreciation Month, why is this important? We see that 95% of military personnel, they are more likely to shop from a retailer who offers a military discount. That's a huge number. 94% say that they have a positive impression of brands that they notice support the military. And the military community is 22% more likely to support brands that offer military discounts, 26% more likely to show support to brands that are equally supportive of the military community. And so that's just a point there that we really talk about the halo effect. Not only are you organically, authentically reaching the military community, but the civilian audience does take note of that. And so there's a nice halo effect that happens with that. And 54% have stated that discounts for military specific offers would actually motivate them to stay loyal to a brand. 21% stated that samples or discounts actually influence them to buy their brands. And that's up year over year by 17%. So those military discounts, they do matter. We'll kind of go through how to do them in the best way, and how you can do a specific key period or an evergreen strategy.
Perfect. And Liz, here we go. So what are some of the key holidays that people want to think about when they're thinking about military appreciation in May?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that Military Appreciation Month is a full month long, starting with Loyalty Day, May 1st, to Military Spouse Appreciation Day, May 12th, and the next kind of big one really being Armed Forces Day. And that's really celebrating the current armed forces, not so much on the veteran side, but this community still is supportive as a whole. And then Memorial Day, it's so important to keep in mind that the public, the general market community has really publicized that as, a holiday, and it's not a holiday. You don't say Happy Memorial Day. It's a somber day. This is the day that we are remembering those who have fallen. So especially, my local Fort Bragg community, we will We will go to memorials, we will go to the Airborne Museum, we'll talk, we'll celebrate, we'll barbecue, but it's to really remember those who have sacrificed their lives for us. So just that's really key and important, because a lot of brands do think, oh, May, Memorial Day, holiday. Just try and get that out of your head. Try and just think of Military Appreciation Month is May, the month as a whole, that we're really celebrating the community and honoring them.
That's a great point, Liz. And we did have a question somebody submitted before the webinar. When did you suggest brands launch their programs? And is it too late to run a military appreciation campaign this year?
It isn't. And depending on what industry you are, it's really going to depend on when you should align. So there's, of course, what I'm always going to recommend is an evergreen strategy, because that's being authentic to the audience, not just coming in and out, 3 times a year and saying, I have this one-time discount, but really being there and showing your support at every given moment. That doesn't mean that you're always marketing to them, but that does mean that you have an offer of some type that you are recognizing them throughout the year. Or it's that you're recognizing your veteran staff, or it's that you're flying a flag, correctly. All these things, that there's different ways to correctly recognize the audience. As far as, a month of military appreciation for May, it really depends on what assets you have ready. If you have social ads already ready, if you have display ads, if you have great OTT video we're going to push out or broadcast, you can be live in market in 2 weeks. If you're trying to do some activations on base, through military endemic print, through outdoor, you're looking more in the 3-week time frame. But that's only if you really have a ready to go market creative set. So that's something where we could, of course, work with you and guide you in, this is the correct strategy and messaging, and here's the timeline to go to market. But it's not too late. We really start launching campaigns the beginning of May. So we're in the midst of it now, just getting everyone prepped and ready. And 4/18 is kind of that sweet spot where most people are starting to get ready to launch 5/1. And then we do say, depending on what industry you're in, perhaps don't run during Memorial Day weekend. Perhaps, let the retailers kind of have that for different promotions that the audience wants. There's an expectation from general market, and there's an appreciation from the military community that extra discounts are given during that period. But it's very cluttered, to say the least. And so perhaps if you're another evergreen brand that's just trying to, give tribute to the market, I wouldn't say that last week is the best time for you. So really up until Armed Forces Week.
That's really good advice. And I think you and I have talked before about how we've seen some brands who don't do it for the whole month. Maybe they just do a week or do 2 weeks, and that might give them a little bit more time to get ready.
Exactly. Really, again, it depends on what product you are. If you're an e-tailer, retailer, and you're going to, have an Oakley offer, have a boot offer, have, any high ticket item, a watch, this audience loves and spends money on high ticket items. So if it's something that you're going to do on the retail side, a week we've seen tons of success and ROI from that. But if it's more of a long tail product, like, insurance or education, you shouldn't necessarily expect an output right away. So I'd say if you're on the retail side, definitely 1, 2, 3 weeks during this month is a great strategy to go into. But depending on your other goals, you may want to wait and kind of pulse out a content calendar accordingly for the year.
Great, that's helpful to know. I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit more about who makes up the military community and go into some of that amazing research that Refuel has.
Yeah, so it's a very diverse community, to say the least. We were joking here that we're going to do a whole military myth session, because there are so many myths that go into the military audience, like the one size fits all, that they're not educated, that they don't have, high household incomes, or they don't buy high ticket items, they're not streamers. All these things are so far from the truth. So it's, you can reach this audience by tapping into their military ethos of when it all started, and their core principles of honor, respect, loyalty. it's always going to live with them for life. It's going to live with their spouses for life. So there is a common core thread that you can reach these 40 million Americans. But when you look at just even 4 different verticals of this audience, they're so different. So active duty, we have 1.4 million. Within that, we have 6 branches of service now. We have Space Force, that's 6,000 people. We have active duty who on Army side, even though Army makes up 46% of that, big Army, special operations, every MOS, every occupation specialty they have is so different. There are all these different micro communities, even within the branches of service, within the active component. So you really have to figure out a way, again, how to communicate to all of them. Or sometimes a brand actually has certain products that are built or services that are built for each branch of service, and we can market differently to them, or by certain age group, or by rank, or by whatever it may be. There's different criteria that you can have that channel. But active duty audience, 45% of them now are Gen Z. This is a young audience. Reserve and National Guard, a lot of folks don't realize how big that audience is. That's 1 million. Active duty and reserve spouses, at 1 million. And then your military veterans, and that makes up a huge bucket here of 17.4 million veterans that are non-retirees and 2.2 million that are retirees. And out of that 17.4 million veterans, you're looking at 3.4 that are the young veterans. Those are the millennials. Those are your, your 25 to 54 veterans who really were post 9/11. And then the rest, it's a huge age gap, jumps up to 60 from there for average age. And then, you're looking at those 14 plus million. So we have so many different personas within each of these audiences that can be, reached. But overall, very brand loyal audience across all sectors, huge spending power, and, they are growing. So, we're hearing in the news a lot of recruitment struggles, but our force size is not down. It's just the recruitment bonuses are going to have to go up. There's different things they're going to have to do to entice this new younger generation. But as of now, we had 100,000 increase in active duty year over year. Post 9/11, that transitioned out was 100,000. You have to think about how good it is to reach if you're doing a student marketing campaign and trying to reach someone that's 18, why wouldn't you try and reach an 18-year-old active duty service member who is an independent consumer? They're literally gone from their home, stripped from who they are, making their own independent decisions, 100% employed. And this is the time where you would connect with them as a brand and engage with them and be able to have a lifetime customer, because they are going to be a veteran. They're going to become, go in the civilian world, but their habits start early, just like a college student. They don't switch as much as a college student. They don't trial as much. They're very brand loyal from the beginning.
And Liz, we do have a question real quick. Somebody was wondering if you are going to offer a military discount, should it only be for active duty, or should you reach everybody in the military community?
If I were to say what you should do, you should reach everyone, because you're reaching 40 million audience. Why wouldn't you want more? There's other policies around that where you actually might not be able to, because the business case, you might be giving too much of a net amount out that you can't give an offer to everyone. But every single one of them has served in the community as a support role, as a spouse who's had to be at the ready for their husbands, taking care of the kids. It's very traditional in the sense that even here at Fort Bragg and other bases, we've had rapid deployments where people have to leave in a matter of 2 hours. They're given a 2-hour notice. And while we're always prepared, that's really short notice. So that's something where, think about, it's not just the service member, it is their family that also sacrifices with them. And as a veteran, they served, they gave time. It doesn't matter if it was just 4 years. That's a hard 4 years of their life. Even if they didn't do combat, that doesn't matter. They enlisted, they were prepared to serve and fight our country, and they did in other capacities. So everyone should be honored, but it's as far as what can you do? And you can do different, we have brands that do more discounts for active duty, less discounts for less of a volume for veterans, or they just do active duty and post 9/11 veterans. So it could be a mix. I think it should be for the whole community because everyone has put forth that sacrifice.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. We should honor everybody who has served in one way or another.
Great. And then, looking at this as a consumer audience, and one of the other myths is like what military, what defense spends in military recruitment as far as the branches of service are trying to spend, or, an organization is going to come up with a foundation and just donate to the audience. What you need to understand is this is a consumer audience that has high spending power. It has increased, since 2018. You can see that you have 74 million that's being, 74,000 average household income compared to 2018 at 71,000. Also, especially the dip that you see in COVID time of 2020 for post 9/11 veterans, their household income is back up to 89,000. These are, especially on the active side, 74,000. That doesn't include with the 30,000 that's covered, right, in basic allowance for housing and whatever stipends they may get depending on what they're doing and whatever reenlistment bonuses. There's so many things that are not included in this amount that is covered. And if they're going to be a retiree, for example, they're going to be covered for life in some capacity. So it is a consumer audience that does have money and has that incremental money because a lot is covered for them. Another thing that we made sure to talk about during COVID is for the active audience and the Reserve and National Guard is they're 100% employed. This audience is not going to be fired. That is their job. I mean, unless they obviously do something that's, bad and they get fired for a different reason, but they're 100% employed. They're independent consumers at that young age, as I mentioned. They buy high ticket items and at a higher frequency than their civilian counterparts do. The brand loyalty is higher when you look at the average order value by military versus civilian at the same age. For all of the brands that we do conversion campaigns on, we see a higher average order value and a higher lifetime customer. And then micro influencers, they truly endorse the brand that they love. You talk about all these influencer campaigns needed. I mean, remember back in the day when you were in college and everything was word of mouth on a college campus? That happens on a military base. That happens between the spouse community. That happens still with veterans talking, with other prior service, like fellow friends. It's just everything that they say is such an endorsement because there's that trust and there's that credibility. And you're taught that this tight circle, that only you understand each other, that endorsement goes a long way. They move frequently. So, you talk about all the items that are needed for them, they happen at more frequent rate. On average, you have active duty, moving around 3 to 4 times per month. Per their career. And so that just means, new home improvement items. It means new retail items, whatever it means, new cars, new insurance, new, et cetera. So a lot more need for purchasing items. And then they're early cord cutters. And we talked about the housing allowances, health insurance coverage, higher education benefits, so many benefits that they get that they don't need to spend their money on like civilians. And so they have this extra, income that they can spend. All right. Just going into some persona trends here, what we did is kind of just looked at a few slides year over year over year. So 2018, pre-pandemic, 2020 in the pandemic, and 2021, this was fall, so kind of leaning out of things. How did their personas really change? So for active duty, we saw that they were still very committed. They were very confident, and a high increase in coupon clipper and also being more introverted because unfortunately they also did have less access to being together on base. And the post 9/11, like they actually increased in coupon clippers. They were less introverted, more confident, and more committed. And then their activities changed, really based on COVID, and what was accessible. So we had active duty interests increasing in fantasy sports, weightlifting, video games. For post 9/11 veterans, we had an increase in video games. But still number one for them interest is target shooting, woodworking, and motorcycles. This is just for post 9/11 veterans in particular.
So interesting.
Yeah, I know. Those are also good ideas. And why we send this is like, think about the imagery that you want in your campaign. You don't just need to have an ad in uniform. Think about aspiration, lifestyle. What do they want to be doing, in their free time? So these are always good insights of their interest for you to be able to bring into your content, bring into your imagery and messaging. And then spending power, as we mentioned, is on the rise. So what are they doing? There's a 34% increase in grocery spending. There's a 19% increase in clothing spending for those retail brands, great, e-tail too. 47% increase in home furnishing for post 9/11 veterans, and 36% increase in telecom spending for post 9/11 veterans. And then a common misconception here in one of the Mythbusters is that everyone who's in the military community just buys on base, inside the gates. And that's not true. So you see here, commissary and exchange is in green. That's inside the gates, their stores. And then out the blue is retail grocery outside of the gates. And then online is orange. So even for clothing and shoes, you see that actually the majority is done online and outside the gates, retail and grocery versus inside the gates, like commissary and exchange. Where it's a bit higher inside the gates is the personal care items and outdoor gear items. But really the rest, this is off base. So don't just think that if you have a military marketing channel, that has to be promoted for anything that you have inside the gates. It should really be, how am I going to reach this military spouse and veteran consumer wherever they are? Where they work, where they play, where they live, whether it's inside the gates or outside the gates. It's really the best strategy to look at this because they are consumers who are consuming everywhere. And then as far as post 9/11 veterans, you would actually think the number is much lower for, inside the gates, but you have to remember that the commissary exchange did open up access to veterans who have their medical card, who have their VA card. So they can still go on post and shop. You have a lot of contractors who work on base too, who were prior service. So they still have access to getting on base. So a lot of reasons you still have veterans being on base. Plus retirees are always allowed on base because they served 20 years of service. So they always were allowed. It's just new that the medical VA card can get you access to that. But primarily they are going to retail grocery stores outside of the gates and online.
And sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering, to me, this says that it's really important that your special offer, your discount, your product should be available online and in store because they are shopping on, it's kind of an omni-channel experience. Is that what you've seen in your research?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and to not, again, a lot of brands, like a Nike or a Reebok, they'll have specific military channel sales arms that are just inside the gates. And that's where they start focusing like, oh, this is where I need to put my military discount. And it's not. You need to make sure that you're reaching the whole community and outside of the retail on base. Right, and then brand loyalty motivation. So, we mentioned it's a very brand loyal audience. So what motivates them year over year to stay brand loyal? Kind of funny to see this orange dip for active duty, where in 2018, 67% said that it's the product quality that keeps them brand loyal. And if you actually look at the turquoise or the bright blue, it's 32% cared about a product that was made in America. That was so shocking to us back then. Now look at the inverse of that. So we're in 2021 and those meet. So 49% care about the product quality, 48% care about the product being made in America. So if your product is made in America, if you have something, specific to your service being made, in America, that's something you do want to make sure you're promoting because that year over year is becoming increasingly important. As for post 9/11 veterans, they had a dip in product quality from caring about it from 2018, but not as significant. And they still do care about it the highest amount in 2021. Secondly, again, interesting enough, is 52% care about the product being made in America. So those are really the two trends that we're seeing. Kind of a dip in product quality, but still the highest that they care about to stay brand loyal. And then made in America making a huge shift up for both active and post 9/11 veterans.
That's interesting. So Liz, we had mentioned, offering discounts and kind of something around some of those holidays, Veterans Day, military appreciation as really important to the community. What other recommendations do you have for brands who want to express gratitude or honor service?
I think that there's so many different ways, again, spotlighting your own veterans. So if you have your own veteran staff, I think that that's a really key way to make sure that you are showing gratitude and appreciation and just supporting them and sharing their journey, and hiring them. Really hiring them is huge initiatives for many different brands. And it's in a lot of our consumer brand campaigns that we're doing for telecom and insurance, they're equally promoting their hiring initiatives to their discount offers, because we're seeing hand in hand those really making the impact together. That's how you're truly integrating within the community. It's that you have that evergreen discount. If you're a retail product, don't shy away from your normal peak periods where you have deep discounts and promotions in the general market to do that for military. Just don't say things like Happy Memorial Day, 50% off. Just make sure that you're phrasing that differently and just saying honoring our veterans, 75% off this day, or whatever it may be. You just want to make sure that it's more of a nod and not a clear discount. But, yeah, I would say for sure the hiring, and then we'll talk about soon kind of aligning with different veteran service organizations is pretty key to really supporting this community, especially now that so many veterans are transitioning out.
Fantastic. And Courtney just pointed out that April is the month of the military child and
Yep.
November is the month of the military family.
Yeah, so we have April right now, tons of activities going on bases across the country. They just they do superhero days where all the kids dress up as a different superhero, and of course as their parents. All kind of aligns with fun Easter extravaganzas too. So a lot of the base communities do support this month greatly, and there are different content alignments that you could do for April, month of the military child. Again, it just depends. Are you a product or service that's trying to reach that military family? If so, there's a completely different strategy that we would point you to than just trying to reach a Gen Z active duty or a post 9/11 veteran or an older
veteran. Love it.
Great. So going kind of into the VSOs, for those of you who aren't familiar, a VSO is a veteran service organization. Most people think Wounded Warrior Project, or for military association, they think, USO, which are great organizations. There's actually, 10,000 plus different military associations and veteran service organizations out there, which kind of means why are so many duplicate services needed for this audience? So it kind of has you questioning that, but it also, you understand it when you see how diverse and complex the community is. So there's different veteran service organizations that just focus more on disabled veterans, or just focus more on older veterans, like the American Legion, the Having Posts, they were really founded, back in the day. They're getting younger now, they're getting hip. But there are younger ones like Team Rubicon that goes after disaster relief and helps service members keep that purpose. And another one is that we partner with specifically for this Strive initiative too, that you all are part of for the month of May, is Team Red, White, and Blue. They're a VSO that focuses on enriching the connection, through physical and social activism. So it's one of those things where you look at how do we keep that mental health and that physical health when you're in and when you're transitioning out. So they're actually not just reaching veterans, they are reaching the active community, younger veterans and older veterans, but it's really through that physical and mental health. So they do so much, and huge rucks and Old Glory runs of like carrying the flag across the state, across, east to west, literally having veterans in each chapter run that flag. And engaging with different organizations like this is you actually supporting the community and giving back. Transitioning out is not easy. I mean, it is, you've been a certain way, you've been in this community that takes care of you. I think a lot of people who aren't in the service or have experienced that, prior, you are taken care of. So even though you might hear like, oh, the drill sergeant's beating me up in the beginning and then leadership's doing this, I mean, you're told when to go to the doctor, you're told what to do, you have all your checklists, like, check the block for this and that. You're really taken care of. And, mentally, physically by your community. You might get a little beaten down, but it is your family. And so it's hard to transition out and become a civilian and not have that support. So these veteran service organizations allow you to really still connect to those members, to the community, and give you that, that social setting that you need. So kind of fun thing that Yingling did with Team RWB is they actually co-branded the cans. So every purchase of a Yingling that had Team RWB logo on the back was giving back to the organization. And it's pretty cool. I saw these like in stores everywhere, and it was for the month of May, and they're doing it again. This was last year, and they're doing it again this year. But kind of a really unique way of, how am I going to give back and how am I going to integrate? Obviously, Yingling's getting great brand exposure out there as well. So it's, a win-win for all. So there's not just traditional marketing channels that you need to go through. You can think of, content, fun ideas that you're integrating into these different organizations. And we can do the same thing with on base too. So depending on if you're allowed on base, et cetera, there's different brand activations that we could do. Could take over the whole month of April for, month of the military child and do fun give backs every week. So I think that just knowing that it's not just traditional media that reaches this audience, but you can get creative and out of the box.
Perfect. We do have a question. What is the recommended approach for a lifestyle publisher to align with brands who support VSOs or have military community initiatives? So that's question one. There's another one after that, but I'll pause there.
Okay, a lifestyle publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be, or is it a lifestyle publisher, the question for justice community, or is it a general market lifestyle publisher?
It says, I think it's general, a lifestyle publisher to align with brands who support VSOs or have military community initiatives.
Yeah, so I think it's just one of those things where the content, if you're a lifestyle publisher, it's all about what content are you creating for the brand, for your audience, and for the VSO that is going to spark that interest. We see that any publisher in this space right now, what matters is their original content, their true content, and their authentic content. It's not just about those one-time eyeballs. It's about who actually engages, listens, shares. And there are few publishers doing that so well. So how is if you're a general market publisher, how do you align? It's really tapping into that success that you've seen as far as what connects the three dots between what your lifestyle publication does, what the military audience wants, and what this VSO is trying to accomplish in their mission. So it's more of that content alignment and doing something that's more, stunt worthy as far as the audience, look at what Black Rifle does, right? It's a good mix of it all between gen market and military.
Perfect. And the second part was around KPIs. So what are some of the KPIs that publishers need to check the box on in order to create authentic campaigns and activations? So you did touch on authenticity. This is kind of what KPIs should publishers be thinking about?
Yeah, well, as a publisher, you want that engagement. So again, you don't want the one-time visit. You want to talk about the monthly unique visitors and the time spent. If you're on site, I forget who this is. I'm going to assume on site. You want them to actually be engaging for a long period of time. And you want to make sure that you're pushing out your content through the relevant ways that this audience wants to receive it. So is it Gen Z? Should you make sure that your YouTube and TikTok and Snap channels are strong and that you're putting out content differently there than you are on site? Should your podcast be very relevant to, to post 9/11 veterans? Yes. I mean, there's all these different strategies that depending on your audience, what you're trying to communicate, it's going to be a different KPI. Most general KPI is create the correct format to communicate the correct message and make sure that those view through rate, the view completion rate, the time spent, the shares, the comments, those are all things that you care about, not just that one click that someone was interested organically because they read the article and then they left your site and never came back.
Makes sense to me. And one more question for you. This is one I've gotten recently. If somebody wants to connect with a VSO or they want to partner with them, what are the best next steps?
Yeah, I mean, it's really what mission aligns with yours, because again, there's so many out there. So are you trying to go after the whole audience? Are you trying to go after an active audience? Are you trying to go after spouses? Are you trying to go after post 9/11 veterans? Do you care about fitness? Do you care about social cause in general? Do you care about the disaster relief, like I mentioned? I'm more just like, I want to have storytelling, around a fire chat, around a billiard, a pool table. So I think it's just really, what is your mission? What's the VSO's mission that you want to support? And then it's really the connection of, here's the contact, and you take it from there. And there's multiple different ways to work with VSOs. That there is just a donation model, which as a brand, if you are trying to do a comm strategy, that doesn't necessarily make sense. Just having a logo isn't going to do anything. Something that's impactful, like what Yingling did, is actually integrating. And that's what most of the new VSOs want right now. They want you to integrate with their mission and make an impact to their members, not just donate money and have your logo on. But there's plenty of VSOs that just want a logo and funding too. So again, it's going to be what is your mission? We can help you align with that, with a list of ones that we'd recommend, and then just introduce you over.
Awesome. I think that gives us a lot of great things to think about.
All right, kind of back to some facts here. So just on favorite brand influence for active duty, what is it that they recommend, that they depend on for recommendations? So you see here, family in orange, fellow service member in blue, reviews, articles, sample discounts, and then in blue, turquoise, on-base ads. So which one is influencing them to actually make a recommendation? You can see that with clothing and shoes, it is primarily still family who is causing them to buy a certain product. For personal care, look at this huge diverse mix now in 2021. This means that you better be influencing their family, you better be influencing their fellow service members, you have to be getting good reviews and articles, great discounts, and on-base ads. So it's kind of interesting there when you see that mix. It's the same for electronics and for auto. So if anything, in the last 2 years here, you've seen a diversification of what's needed to actually influence that purchase decision. It's not as standard as, oh, it's just my family that I'm listening to. It's a lot of factors that matter. So throughout the board, you really do have to be ready and on it. And for post 9/11 veterans, it still follows that same trend of needing in 2021, that diverse mix. A little less again for clothing and shoes. So clothing and shoe companies out there, make sure that you are reaching those family members. And then for traditional media, so we like to look at traditional media versus digital media on the next slide. What we're looking at here is what are they doing? So this isn't really action of ads. This is how many times are they consuming the following media, and how has that changed year over year? So you do see some big dips here. So watching basic cable TV took a huge decline in 2020, which is interesting because they were home more. So you would think that basic TV would be up. It did rebound in 2021 when you look, and for both active duty and for post 9/11. But still the number one is listening to standard and satellite radio, which is pretty interesting. Another huge increase year over year is reading military print magazines and base newspapers. We also see this for post 9/11 veterans. This was something we saw across the board. Anything that had military endemic content was tuned into more. You have to think about what was happening. We were going through a crisis, a pandemic. Everyone leans into their community more. So the military print content is trusted. You hear from your service members, this is trusted news source. We also exit out of a 20-year war in Afghanistan. And this is where, again, the community wants to lean in to really listen to the community themselves as to what is happening. So we saw that trust really lean back into the community for those military-specific media outlets. When we look at digital media consumption, we did see a drop on the military side for visiting non-military websites. That follows the same trend where they went and leaned into their trusted sources. We did see that yellow listening to podcasts went way up for active duty and post 9/11 veterans. So as a lifestyle publisher, if you don't have a podcast solution, I strongly suggest that you align with one. And then we see for post 9/11 veterans here, also email went way up in 2021, took a huge dip in 2020, and then really increased in 2021. And still top for them is using social media and listening to streaming music and watching online videos.
Awesome. Liz, I am going to stop interrupting you and asking so many questions unless we do get more from the chat, because we do have about 15 minutes left. And I know you have so much amazing content and people really do want to hear about the best ways to market and the best channels.
Great. Okay, so just looking at one of my Mythbusters, this isn't a streaming audience. That's not true. It wasn't true back in 2018. So the military audience is always on the move. They had to be really mobile more than anything compared to their civilian counterparts. So OTT, streaming, anything is how you need to make sure your marketing strategy is reaching this audience. It's just about being able to reach the correct devices, right? So making sure your strategy isn't just using behavioral targeting, but really sourcing first-party data to make sure you're reaching this audience with precision. But across the board, how are they watching TV and their favorite shows? It's on OTT now versus their mobile phones. Video content usage, streaming's up across the board for active duty and post 9/11 veterans. Netflix is still their #1 choice, but we did see, good spikes in YouTube for both active duty and for post 9/11 veterans. When we talk about audio has really gone on the rise for YouTube. Go YouTube. They're really winning for this audience, and we see that success within our ad campaigns too. So it's not just organically, but making sure you have a paid YouTube strategy is very important to enhance your military campaign. Spotify, sadly, is down for active duty, so Sirius XM. It took a dip for Sirius XM took a dip for post 9/11 veterans, but you actually see that Spotify did go up to 37%. But man, a clear winner on the YouTube music here. Social media platforms. So we've seen an interesting decrease within social media platform usage as far as the percent that use it. But those who do use it, we've actually seen an increase of hours spent on platform. So you have a smaller audience, but a more engaged audience, which is still why if you do campaigns through these platforms, you are going to see that high engagement and high conversion rate. You just have to understand that this isn't the only place to reach them anymore. You really do have to have that omni-channel mix. And then just as far as on base, so really inside the gates, this follows the trend on the military content. We've seen this on the rise. This is, where they are using more facilities. They are spending more time on base. Obviously 2020 compared to 2020, huge difference. But even 2018 when things were normal, there's just more visits to different facilities on the base. It's more of their community. They're spending more time in their trusted areas. And then last 2 slides kind of on advertising influence. I'm just going to speed through before questions. Is which of the following captures your attention when you see ads? So we have such a difference between 2020 and 2021 here. So basically everyone was following ads and paying attention to ads for active duty in 2020, and that took a dip in 2021. But still, what they cared about, #1, 40% of active duty said that they paid attention to ads that offer incentives. So those are important. Also, still high on the list is your relevant, meaningful. So that's authenticity, being creatively unique, having text that's specific to military. And then post 9/11 veterans, again, dip across the board, but they at 49% do care about you having an ad that's creatively unique for them. Probably because, they've hung up their uniform that had them be the same for that long. And now, they want to be very unique and do everything, on their own. So we have a high number there. And then offering incentives still to there, still second. So very important to them. As far as what actually influenced to buy the product, we see that, social media ads, even though down for active duty, 39 to 37%, 37% still say that they were actually influenced to purchase that item. That's really high up there compared to the next one of online video ads, 28, email ads, 27. For post 9/11 veterans, social media ads is still number one, and then email ads. You do see an increase across the board in the actual what influenced them to buy a product versus what they paid attention to. So they're kind of inverse charts, which is very interesting. So the conversion is higher. They're actually fessing up to using these channels to buy. All right, so that is it for kind of the year over year stats. I think they're interesting, a lot of data on them. So good thing you guys are going to have this to take away and go through on your own. But Angela, I don't know if you just want to talk, if you have any questions before we get into how to market to this audience.
I think that's all fantastic information, and I am really glad everybody's going to have this slide deck after this call. I think one question, when we're kind of thinking about the different channels, display, social, if somebody has a smaller marketing budget, what's going to make the most impact and where should they focus first?
Well, of course, it's going to depend on the audience you're targeting.
I know.
It's going to depend on your product or service. It's going to depend on your KPIs. There's too many things to judge that. So I would have to know the industry, I'd have to know who the target audience is, and then, you could talk about the correct media mix.
That's why we love Liz and Refuel, because they're going to give you something truly custom every time.
It is custom. We work with over 200 brands doing military marketing each given year, and so many repeat brands that see the value year over year in reaching this audience. And I can honestly say that not one campaign is the same, and it changes quarterly. The success we're monitoring on each platform, it changes. So even remember when Instagram was an awareness platform and not conversion, and now it's the #1 converter. So it's the same. TikTok's evolving. So many things change that there's never one set strategy. And truly, it depends on what product or service you are for me to be able to answer that question against what audience.
Makes sense to me.
So one thing that I will leave you with before I pass it to Angela is how to market to this audience, to your point. It's a very different audience. So I think what we've learned, across the way is that it's not as straightforward as it sounds, because this community is multi-generational, multicultural. They live on base, they live off base, they live all over the world. You have Gen Z, you have Gen X, you have so many themes, so many sub-audiences and personas within the audience. So really, it's going to be very dependent on what are the current data insights telling us, what are the what are the platforms out there telling us, and then how do you authentically lean in? My favorite example is Aetna, that came to us 5 years ago, said, I can't find any military imagery that's compliant. If any, Angela knows that we're the compliance police. So we do not let anything go to market that is incorrect. Because guess what? This audience is pretty rough on you when you do get it wrong. So we leaned in, at the ready. That's something general market gets, that civilians get, but really the military community is always at the ready. And that aligned with the brand positioning and messaging of Aetna. So we created a whole photo shoot, a whole gallery that Aetna is able to tap into that matches their look, their field, their positioning, and just did, specific military messaging and positioning from there. And this was, they took over a large market share, over 10 carriers, because truly they took the time to understand the audience, lean in, and revise and implement their strategy year over year to be, it's so different because the audience changes, again, year over year. So one kind of brand that truly, I think, did it right in marketing to this audience wasn't, because they listened, they learned, they evolved. So, kudos to them. So I'm going to kick it over to Angela. Thank you all.
Thanks, Liz. So we do want to invite you guys to join our Strive campaign. Strive is an ongoing collaboration between Refuel and ShareID and some of those different BSOs that Liz told you about earlier. So we've put together something that's really special. This is for new ShareID customers and new ShareID military programs. But we really want everybody to give back this May. And so we're going to give 5,000 free military verifications to new ShareID customers so that you can launch something that's truly unique and special. You want it to be the best offer available. So you don't want to give the military a 10% discount if they can also go on Retail Me Not and find that for anybody. So we want to make sure you can give them something truly special, which is why you're going to put that verification in place. You keep all of the data from the verification. That's all yours. You own that. You're going to get a go-to-market playbook, which is step-by-step how to launch your campaign. Liz and Refuel put together an amazing special edition of the Refuel Military Explorer report that does include a lot of the information she was just talking about what uniforms to show and how to display the flag. All those details are there for you. And then we also have the additional value that just comes from working with ShareID. So we have PR opportunities. We have a free ShareID shoppers marketplace where we can feature your offers. And for the month of May, all of the revenue that's donated, all of the revenue that's produced during the month of May from these campaigns is going to be donated to Team Red, White, and Blue. So that's how ShareID is going to be giving back this Military Appreciation Month. And we're very excited. In May, we're going to be hosting an event with Refuel, Team Red, White, and Blue, and the Fort Bragg MWR. And we're going to be on base, and we're going to have a health and wellness event. So there are free sponsorship opportunities available for that too, to ShareID customers, our new customers, and brands who work with Refuel. And all that's required for that is just a donation of goods or services on your side. So if you're interested in any and all of those opportunities, please do reach out. That's my little sales pitch, but I really just wanted to point out how much value we're going to give to companies this May, it's April, May, because we just think it's really, really important to give back to this community.
Absolutely.
We put together a little timeline for you. So this would be if you were trying to get something live by May 1st, but as Liz pointed out earlier, you could just do it for a week or 2 weeks during the month. So keep that in mind as you're looking at this. And then as you're thinking about your military marketing plan, you're going to think about your existing channels, so your organic social, your email, because it does have that halo effect. So blast it out to your whole email list. They're going to refer military members that they know. There's that column with all of ShareID support, and then just a very high level list of things that Refuel can help with. So we want to work with you to really be strategic and help you work out that marketing plan so that we can make Military Appreciation Month a win-win-win for everybody who is involved. Jen, we are going to send this out afterwards. You'll definitely get a copy of that timeline. And if you want to hop on a call after this, I can talk you through it. And if you want to talk to me or Liz, here's our email addresses, our contact information. And then after this, Ashley will be following up. There will be a recording from the webinar. I know you want to re-listen to us. You'll get that go-to-market playbook, and you'll get the Refuel Military Explorer report, and you'll get a copy of this deck that we've gone over in the call today.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We're going to close out that webinar. And like Angela said, we're going to be sending out all of those fantastic resources. But just wanted to thank both of our wonderful presenters, Angela and Liz. Really great to have you here. Thank you for sharing all of those insights with us. And if you can take a moment when we close out this webinar, that survey will pop up for you and you will see that. And it's just a short 3 questions. So we'd love to hear what you think. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.